All right. Well, there we go. One of those little funny hiccups here. Free software. Oh, I decided to change the background. Why not?
There, man.
Me too. All right. Yeah. Huh? Let me turn this down a little bit. How's that? All right. Oh yeah, I don't have any control over those. Sorry about that. All right. How's SeaGL for you guys so far? Yay! Awesome. Okay, great. So this is, I'm going to talk about how free software is totally the 80s. I was an 80s kid. Have you ever taken one of those quizzes that's like, how 80s are you? I feel like, so, you know, certain things, there's like jelly bracelets, there's neon stuff, there's like, you know, wacky hair and all these other sorts of things. And, you know, I feel like I failed some of those, but there's just, because there's sort of a vast swath of 80s, but obviously I don't fail all of them. This is me wearing a Vemicon shirt, rocking out to probably Depeche Mode at a friend's 14th birthday party, and I'm wearing my sunglasses at night. So, how 80s are you? I guess I'm pretty 80s. So, we're going to kind of imagine for a little bit, like, if we went back in a time machine and pondered the 80s, what would we find? And of course, we have to go back in the DeLorean. We would probably expect to see some 80s style. This look here, where she's unabashedly hanging out with the poodle whose hair she's rocking. Pac-Man, you guys remember when it was just Mr. Pac-Man and he didn't have a sidekick yet? The 80s often get cast as this like very materialistic decade, and this is probably one of the reasons why. This is basically a TV show about the trials and tribulations of having to go with your super rich dad. Like, oh, yeah, and he has like a train in the house, and like they have all these like, oh, private school, it's so hard to get used to private school. I actually used to watch this, so and you could get the lunchbox. I never had the lunchbox. I'm a little jealous, but maybe you're a little bit deeper and your recollection of the 80s isn't all silver spoons and Pac-Man and poodle hair. Or a little bit older, you might remember that the Berlin Wall fell at the end of the 80s. So that's, you know, not completely a substanceless era. Or maybe you're already into computers. Do people remember this one? This was the first computer that I had in our house, and it's hard to kind of get back into the mind space of like, wait, we can have a computer in our house. Like, wow, awesome. So yeah, no, it was great. Like, so I found this one. This is actually, the title of this is Portable Computer. Just a little bit, just kind of give you a sense of the era. And we had a setup like this in my house too, where except like maybe over here would be a hand-lettered sign from my dad reminding us in large letters, under penalty of not being able to use the computer anymore, what order to turn things on and turn them back off again. But that was important because there are all these external components. Like you've got to turn on, you know, the computer and then the disk drive and then the monitor and then the cassette tape thing, which I never used, but I used for some stuff. So computer speaking, like it was a very different era, right? If this is portable, I can't even imagine taking this and carry on, right? Hypertext was also being created. Tim Berners-Lee was in the process of creating the language that allows lots of different websites to use a similar language so that you can go there with whatever browser you've got and it will render on the page like more or less okay, except for maybe I don't know. We're also having other conversations about format. This is the VHS versus beta. This is one we lost, I guess, if you were a video nerd at the time. Apparently beta was the better format, but didn't have the better marketing. Maybe there's an allegory in there. War games. This was, this is what we all were like. Wow, the future. We're all going to hack into the Pentagon. Don't hack into the Pentagon. I'm sure that's a bad idea. I actually don't like really hacking into anything. Like it was I had a boyfriend in the 80s who hacked into the phone company and then had trouble like getting work later on. So even though it seemed really fun, like this is not like hack into the Pentagon is not a thing you should put on your resume. More excitingly, work began on the GNU project in 1983. So that's pretty exciting. This is where we're at in computers. We've got like a massive portable computer. We've got a modem that you stick the actual handset phone in, and then we've got the beginnings of the GNU project, so that you can eventually run free software as your whole operating system when you hack into the Pentagon, which you shouldn't do. So let's, do you guys remember Different Strokes? Okay. So they had this catchphrase, what you're talking about, Will. So why the 80s? Why is free software the 80s? The 80s as a decade were kind of this conversation about two different ideas about how we should be. And some folks have characterized it as sort of the 50s versus the 60s. And not like the actual 50s versus the actual 60s, like kind of an idealized TV 50s, where like conformity and teamwork and, not being a weirdo and, keeping your lawn nice because that's your duty to the rest of the community and that type of thing was important. And so, we have this idealized 50s and then this very like demonized 60s, where like, people are having premarital sex and doing drugs, and we don't even know what else. Like, who even knows? It probably just goes downhill from there, right? So the 80s were sort of this conversation about, like, where should we go culturally? Should we embrace the weirdos, or should we crush all that so that we can be respectable, nice people? I have gone ahead and created a sort of arbitrary matrix on where I think various things from the 80s go. So I don't know if you can read it. So we've got like kind of this fetishization of the individual and then conformity on one, at the bottom here. So you've got the individual and community-minded things, and then we've got conformity. I don't know why this is shaking, versus change. And so for me, I think, like there's a lot of things in the 80s that go down here where we're really fetishizing the individual and being one of this kind of society where we're, you take pride in your appearance and all that type of thing. And then, community as a separate axis. For me, I think most of the interesting things that are happening are things that drive change and are community-minded. You guys following me so far? Okay. So, I put, no one who participated in Tiananmen Square was really doing it for their own selves. It was more of a community-minded thing. And you have a lot of different things going on. This is, I put between the galaxies here. This is gaming, computer gaming as a sport, and they created this overarching community kind of in the middle there. Cheerleading, which is a sport, but it's not particularly change-oriented, as far as, what can women do? Wear short skirts and yell, I don't know. So it's not really, particularly change-oriented, if you follow me, right? Personal computers, pretty exciting as far as change-oriented things that were going on in the 80s. Previously, computers were, would take up huge rooms. You would use them at your company. You would have to sign on and do timeshare. just this idea that you could have a computer that just worked for you. That was kind of this idea that came out of the 60s. Like, we're going to use it to augment the power of the human mind. Like, back when we believed that like we weren't using 90% of our brains, like the computers were maybe going to help us do that. So, like kind of these different axes along which you can, map things. So I put free software like kind of in a similar axis. So like individual versus community, and then conformity versus like change oriented. And so, like the kind of the dudes only project, like it's not particularly change oriented in my mind. In-jokes for software, they're fun for the community you already have, but they don't really help you reach out to the wider community, right? Doing your docs just in English or having your projects only exist in English, like it could be really awesome, and it might eventually get further along there when it's more of a global project. And I put some of my favorites up in this, like change and community nexus of things that I think are pretty awesome. And you'll see like down here, I think like the whatever works, which is we have this kind of idea. I heard this at a conference earlier this year where someone actually did a keynote, which was titled, it wasn't exactly titled whatever works, but that was the main theme. It was like, hey, like you can use free software, you can use proprietary software, and they all play nicely together. I've made this fake middle ground where you just use kind of half of each, and it's cool. And I'm like, I don't know. That sounds like half like what we already have, and half like, oh, well, I don't want to seem not open to new ideas or whatever. And I thought that was kind of boring. I'm always suspicious when someone sets up like a arbitrary middle ground, like, oh, you could like vaccinate or not vaccinate or just vaccinate half the time. Like, it's kind of middle ground, right? Or, I'm sure you can think of other examples for issues that you care about where you're like, that's not the middle ground. I don't know who, you're fired. But, so for our community, I think this arbitrary middle ground of like, I use half proprietary and half free. Well, it's like, I think it's kind of a poisonous fake middle ground. So I just, that's kind of like how I got into this talk, which is why you guys are getting to hear it now. So computing is now like kind of how we do all of our media. It's how we do all of our news. It's how we do a lot of our conversations. We do still have some face-to-face conversations, but we do a lot of our thinking online. In the 80s, we were doing this in different mediums, and we saw problems when you had massive consolidation, like just one or two single entities or a very small group of people in charge of our TV and our radio. So I have this statistic from Free Press where they deregulated television station ownership, so you could have as many as you want. And we saw this huge drop by 2007 in minority ownership of television stations. And the numbers are really similar for radio too. So when you see massive consolidation, you tend to see like a plummet in diversity of ideas and thinking and participation. And so this is kind of like, thanks 80s, like for giving white men all the TV stations or whatever. But I guess it's the TLDR there. But the goal is that, or the main thrust here is that television station ownership has become completely consolidated. Similar to maybe the struggle for the desktop. You could just imagine this as like maybe Ubuntu, BSD, and maybe a couple of other ones that are even smaller, and then then we've got Windows right there, right? So that's kind of the parallel that made me think of it. 'Cause this is where we're having our conversations and getting our news. It's TV, right? So. And part of the reason that happened is because news needs money and eyeballs. And you see this like now with the clickbait, like you'll never believe what this pesticide can do for you or something. I try not to click on those, so I'm trying to not know what they say when you actually click through. I'm fill in the blank, right? So how does that graph onto today? No one's killed the internet yet, right? But not for like lack of trying. If people are familiar with the net neutrality issue. I have a number here too. But oh yeah, here I go. So this is their percentage change in the Netflix download speed by ISP. So like, Comcast was like, oh, hey, you're gonna support that net neutrality stuff. Like, I don't know, and like, boom, and then they're like, all right, we'll pay extra, and then all of a sudden their speed is back up. So this is the kind of internet that we would be looking at if we allowed ISPs to charge the content provider at the end for speeds. So you can imagine like a smaller project or like an individual blog that you might have on something that might be a little more counterculture and doesn't have quite the money to pump into Comcast to up that speed. You can see where that would go and what would happen there. Another thing that I think is a huge threat to the internet and consolidation is the corporatized centralized services that we use. And Chris will recognize this. This is one of the pictures we use from Media Goblins. This is the web that we have today for a lot of things that we do. Like you could imagine that this is YouTube, or this is Flickr, or this is Facebook, and you're like one of these little dots on the outside. Do you think that giant, massive circle in the middle cares what you think? No? Maybe if there were like millions of you together making your voice heard in one way. And then still, like, they're not actually obligated to do anything. They, it would be one of those things where they're obligated to make it look like they're doing something. But in the end, with a giant corporatized service like this, you don't really have any impact on the service that you're using. And that means that they're free to censor you if they want to. Like, what are you going to do? They're like, oh, well, don't use our free as in cost service, right? See ya. You had something to add?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Even if you're paying up the nose to, say, Amazon Web Services,
Oh, yeah.
You still don't get much in the way of play from them.
Yeah.
So
even if you're paying, they don't care.
Right.
So it's worse than even I made it out to be, which is usually not the case. I'm usually,
Sorry.
No. Thanks. It's good. It's good to be the optimist occasionally. Anyway, I am sometimes an optimist, but so we've got all of that. I feel like free software is constantly under attack. We have proprietary services making claims about like that free software is or isn't good in this way, or that maybe it's not as secure, or they never pick up the phone when you need help. All of these different things. And so we see like this kind of thing all the time. I actually saw this. We're in Microsoft country. Have people seen this image before? This is, so I was at OSCON, and there was a Microsoft booth at the open source convention in Portland. And they had this sign that said, "Make web, not war." Which, was it's getting back to that, like, whatever works. Like, you could use a little Microsoft and a little bit of that hippie free software stuff. Like, we're cool, man. Like, it's all of those shouty people that actually care what happens that are, making all the arguments. And I saw this and I was like, oh, it made me so angry. Like, given what I know about what Microsoft's done to the free and open source software community, I was just like, oh, it rings like a, have you ever heard someone say, like, stop being so defensive? What do you say after that? I'm not. Or like nothing. No,
you're attacking me.
Yeah. Well, and then it makes you sound like, oh, I'm not. And it's this thing where, we know that Microsoft has patents and has been threatening free software for a long time in various ways. Sometimes it's like in the mobile space. Sometimes it's like people remember the TomTom suit, the file allocation table stuff down in the Linux kernel. And so they've done like everything they can to be like, oh, while that Linux kernel might be patented by Microsoft, you don't want to wake up someday to a letter, and we know that just in the last couple couple years, they have been funding a tool called Conversant, which has like 2,000 patents on the smartphone, in the smartphone space. We don't know who they've been suing because I think they've been lowballing those suits so far. So when they say like, oh, like, hey guys, can't we all just get along? And it's like, well, maybe if you stop suing us and spreading lies and rumors about free software, we could. But so I feel like we're in this place where free software is kind of under attack. So if that makes me a pessimist, then I am a pessimist, and I will don my foil hat proudly. So on to the hacker ethos. So we talked a little bit about how the 1960s made the personal computer. So, when I was talking about like change and community-oriented stuff, the 1960s saw these amazing, like, people using computers for all kinds of amazing stuff. Like in California, they were using it as this virtual bulletin board. Like people would do like, they would barter stuff like, oh, I'll do your laundry if you will help me with my taxes. And they were leaving notes on this community computer club kind of site. And, so people were using it like to build community and do all of these different things. So that's kind of the promise of having the personal computer in your house. It's, it's pretty exciting. I thought, and it's, about that augmenting the human mind. I just thought this would be super fun. This is I guess this one's portable because it's on wheels, right? So this is, yeah, right. It doesn't have a handle, so otherwise it would be. But this is, I think this is Doug Engelbart who invented the mouse. So you can see it's like the size of a brick. But, I think it took a pretty non-conformist sort of state of mind to be like, what if we could have like a brick with some wheels on it to control the way we use the computer? Because like, you have to see pretty far into the future to be like, maybe one day that'll be comfortable and small and usable on the hand. But, it really kind of, this kind of invention, I think, doesn't come from like status quo sort of thinking, like, oh, you and your do your own thing BS or whatever. It's like, well, he's not doing his own thing. He's like, no, I'm gonna build this huge thing, and we're gonna have a mouse, and I'm gonna have a, you can tell like he's a real hacker because he's already got 2 screens, right? Like already. So
He actually had a large team with him.
Oh yeah. I don't want to like. It's not just him, but yeah. So maybe, are you saying there's like someone off using the other screen, perhaps? It's hard to tell.
Well, there's like 10, 15 people at the moment.
Yeah, and there's actually, I'll give you guys a couple books for further reading, but well, and they were some of the early folks that were working on personal computing stuff and some of the early technology that went with the internet. It's like they were teams, but like they were living in a house, and there were weird hot tub parties and taking acid together, and like really like kind of pushing the trying to get that other 90% of the brain unlocked. I don't know how effective hot tub parties and LSD are for that, but A for effort, I guess. So.
I'm the one to try.
Noted. So that's the 60s. The 80s brought us manifestos, like I said, the GNU manifesto. I assume everyone here is familiar with the GNU project. Yeah, awesome. Okay, that's the well, there's a whole table on it downstairs. I don't know if anyone came up from the FSF table, but this is the idea that everyone should have access to all of the source code for everything they use all the time. So, and this again is like, I think this is very kind of 60s thinking and not 50s thinking. Like it's in the broad strokes kind of idealized 50s and like kind of way out there 60s sort of stuff. And I think that's awesome. I think you get really exciting stuff, right? When you're willing to question and push beyond. So, today, free software is everywhere. Like, we have it on our servers. Like, I assume most people here are using it. You may be using a free software browser, free software chat client. It's all over the place. and not just here in the U.S. Obviously, this is the one laptop per child. I thought that this is the cutest picture on the internet of the OLTC, just so you know. But this was, like let's give children computers where they can at any point right click and see the source code for what they're using. I think that's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah. I don't know what's going on. Okay. So I'm going to say that I think with great power comes great responsibility. If free software is everywhere, then it is up to us to make sure that it's not just like, oh, it's cool, you can get your proprietary software and my free software, and I'll put my free software in your proprietary software. And maybe, do stuff that's like more on that change community-oriented part of the spectrum of activities that people could engage in. So maybe the 80s can help. Hopefully the pictures I've got. So I have some ideas from the 80s. Maybe work on something that makes the world a better place. If people remember Madonna, so maybe work on something that's not just for the money. Or if you have to work on just for the money at work during the day, then you've always got your evenings and your weekends. Or you can give money to someone who who is doing something good. If you're making too much money at Amazon or something, we can help you out with that. I have a long list of free software projects that you can give money to if you like. I would say also make your projects enthusiastically open. So this, diverse, willing to hear new ideas, willing to look beyond like, oh, well, but the proprietary version does it like this. Like, I think it's more exciting to build something different that proprietary software doesn't offer us. That's why I work on Media Goblin. Like, I think it's really weird that the proprietary services for media hosting are all sorted by media type. Because no one's like, oh, you know what? Like, I'd like my songs in, one place like you, and my movies somewhere else. Like, why should they not be organized around the individual person that wants to share the media? So, I would say go ahead and make something that doesn't exist yet with free software. And treat everyone like a person. People remember the Goonies? We're kind of in Goonies country too, right? What a weird part of the country where we've got like Microsoft and Goonies, right? But I'm sure there's other things that the Pacific Northwest are known for. Maybe like coffee, beer, rain. Yeah. So we got coffee, beer, rain, Goonies, and Microsoft. Okay. Huh? And Morgan's. Oh yeah, right. I forgot that. So Goonies, like this is a team, right? They didn't know they were going to be a team. They thought they were just like hanging out, working around in the house. But they ended up being a team. And I love the Goonies story because each person has their own bit to offer, right? So I think a lot of times in projects where we're building code, we forget to include folks that have other skills, like translations, docs, event planning, any number of different things. Like there are tons, I could go on and on about stuff that non-coders could do. Like we've got free software lawyers, we've got all kinds of people that want to help and build free software, but they have to feel like they're part of the team, or they're not gonna stick around. Like, so here everyone, we've got the gadget kid and someone who's always got like snacks in their pocket. So everyone kind of has something to bring to the table and help them get through that maze. And I think our free software projects should, mirror this. Maybe we'll find a pirate ship at the end of Cold Gold. I don't know. Could do worse, right? Oh, is that your pirate noise? Sorry. Yeah. So another thing that I think the 80s could teach us, and I'm told that I have to explain that I mean like not First Blood 1, but First Blood 2. Rambo. I showed my husband this one before I went, and he's like, no, like you're definitely talking about like Rambo from the second movie. And just explain what I mean, like, he's like a one-man ship. He's going to do it all by himself. He doesn't need any help from anyone. He's certainly not doing any documentation. I mean, I don't really imagine him, like, being in the movie channel, super friendly, like, hey, oh yeah, that sounds frustrating. Let me show you how to install it again. Like, you know, this is like, rawr, like, I'm on a mission and I'm angry and I don't have time for bringing everyone else up to speed. So if you have someone like this in your project, I would say get rid of them. There's a lot of research around what happens when you have like one jerk in your organization. It's kind of like hanging out a sign that says jerks welcome here. And then pretty soon you have more jerks than not jerks. And then you just have jerks. So if you've got Rambos in your projects, you should show them the door already. Oh, well then you can fork it and leave them there, sure. But I'm saying if you're still working really hard to bring in like nice people, and then it's like, hey, oh, you're like, yeah, okay.
There's a Maria.
I'm not even going to touch that. So
There's a whole list of boards where there's a lot of divergence of opinion as to which side contains all the jerks.
oh yeah, well, yeah, your mileage may vary. For me, I think a project that is open to new people is oops. Oh, I guess we can do it like that. Is open to new people, is open to different kinds of contributors, treats them all like human beings that are valued, you know, and maybe has like a good governance type of structure that allows people to have an amount of input that makes sense with what they're contributing. That would be like in broad strokes without calling any particular project out, what I think makes a good project. But, you know.
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to name any of those.
We're being recorded.
I don't see that would be
The last thing you want to do is call out a bunch of people you think are jerks and then put it on the internet. I don't know if you guys are aware, that's a super bad idea. Gamergate. Yeah, okay. So, lastly, embrace change. Sometimes the weird stuff is the best stuff, right? And I think, I want to see a fast movement that's like not afraid to take risks and bring in new people and be like, hey, maybe we should go to nursing conferences and talk to them about the software they're using and, you know, make a nurse themed GNU Linux distribution. Like, why not? You know, it's I think looking beyond like our usual suspects is where we're going to find growth for the free software movement. So those are the things that I hope the 80s can help you with. I did promise some further reading. And so this, what the doormouse said, this is all about like how the ethos of the 60s drove the idea of the personal computer. Back to Our Future, this is where he does a really good job of laying out that 50s versus 60s mentality and where that is coming from, if you want to dive really deep on that. And then if you want more pictures of giant brick-sized mice, these are two great places to look. Who doesn't need a picture of a giant brick-sized mouse, right? So I would like to let you know you can totally email me. Thank you very much. I went super fast. I'm sorry about that. I drank too much coffee today. Comments, thoughts, complaints? I put something in the wrong place on the matrix, whatever. Yeah.
What is open MRS?
That's medical records. So it helps doctors and patients, like, so patients can take their records with them because it's a portable, interoperable type of thing. Yeah. Yeah, they're a great project. And it's a really interesting, especially as people move around more and more, like being able to take your medical records with you and have them readable wherever you go. Yeah. Oh, other ones? Yeah. I'll take care of them here.
So one of my favorite projects has no actual way to give them money.
Oh.
They guys
You don't want to say.
all work on it part-time.
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful. And there is no actual legal structure that I could ever ask my company that I work for to donate. Like, it is not any of these usual suspects.
Mm-hmm.
it's a well-established code base, it's not going to go out anywhere. But
Mhm.
in that sort of situation, what would be a recommendation for figuring out how to funnel money to such a project?
Well, it depends on how, you know, how into the details your workplace is with this particular project. Like if they were interested in funding like some development or Hackfest or something like that, that could be one way. Yeah, there's a couple projects that do a pretty good job of like trying to like, oh, do you want to buy like a support contract or like a preferred, support type of a thing. I mean, it really would depend on the project and what they're able to offer. The other thing would be just like, okay, if they have events like Hackfest or conferences or things like that, get your company to sponsor it. I'm with you on the trying to funnel more money to free software. And depending on the project, I would try and find another project that is similar, that's doing a good job of getting money funneled, and then see if you can get them to adopt some of those particular tricks. If that makes sense, without knowing who you're talking about.
So, I was thinking about the Matrix, and noticed you mentioned Media Goblin, yay. But what about,
I'm a little biased.
GNU Social might be another thing to add there as a way to get other free software users into combating the centralization of social media and Facebook and Twitter and stuff, because that's a threat to our freedom and our, as pointed out.
No, I agree. There's I would put like there could have been like a lot more. It's like I don't want to clutter it up so it's illegible, but just kind of give some examples of like what I think. And in fact, like last time I did the talk, I was like, oh, maybe I should just give people their own blank matrix and let them put it in as like a fun audience participation. But you're welcome to, the slides are available online. You can paste in your own. But I might add it if I do it again, for sure. I mean, GNU Social is a great project. Other thoughts? Yeah. Oh, I kind of figured people knew who that was. Were there people who didn't know who Morky Mindy were? No. Oh, one person. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. There's Morky Mindy. This is if people don't remember, this is really young. There's a really, really young Robin Williams who plays a space alien that has landed in Colorado. And then he is wearing a suit in the first one that he's put on backwards. So Mindy here trusts him because she thinks he's a priest because of the suit collar backwards, looks like a priest collar. And then it turns out he needs a place to crash, and so she lets him crash on his sofa. And then hijinks ensue because she's now got a space alien roommate who sits on his head, and yeah, no, it's a great show. Like if you didn't, I watched lots of it, and so yeah, I was, Leave It to Beaver is kind of what you would expect. Like kids, like, oh, I might have told a lie. I'm gonna stay up all night and feel bad about it, and then fix it in the morning. Kind of a little bit more like Family Circus, but without the dark part. Yeah.
So what do we do about projects like Gallery, which just decided to shutter because not because they didn't have money, but because the whole team is trying?
I actually don't know the story on Gallery, but if it's similar to like say the OpenMoko project, where they're like, oh, we're done with this. I don't know. I think so for OpenMoko, I think they could have done a better job of like letting the community know, like, hey, does anyone want to take this on and be the steward? Like before we like, blah.
Oh yeah, no, they totally just like, yeah, we have to do it.
We're done.
So
Is the code still out there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think before they announced that, they could have asked to see if there was someone who wanted to like kind of take on that code base. That's the only other thing I would say.
You also offer to pitch in.
Yeah.
So I would kind of argue that anytime a project closes down because people don't have time, that the real problem is that there isn't enough money to run the project. Because if there's money, then people do that instead of the other thing that's taking up their time. So
figure out how to fund it.
right,
And then
figuring
all of a
out how to
sudden,
fund it.
all the time in the world.
Yep.
Yeah, there's that. It's I also think too, like we could do a little bit better job of figuring out what folks have already built. Like on the matrix, I had at the bottom like the 1 or 2 person projects where someone like reinvents something without checking to see like, oh really? Someone's already doing a thing to organize logs? No way. Like, oh, huh? Because there's like 500 of those on Git. Like, you know, so instead of finding something that someone's already done, they're like, I'll just make my own. Like, you know, so part of the magic of free software is that you don't have to make your own. Like, you could just add to an existing thing. And people want to put their name on it. So it's like kind of that ego versus community thing. Like, are you trying to provide software that the world needs? Or are you trying to, like, get rich and be featured on the cover of Time magazine someday? Like, I don't know. I guess decide what you want to do in the world. Maybe you could do both. I don't know. I guess that would involve Time magazine changing their focus a little.
Also, if your project is, if it's more difficult to use your software than to write my own, guess what I'm going to do?
Oh yeah. So that was the other thing. Like a project with no documentation might as well not exist most of the time. Yeah. So yeah. So if you're gonna do it, do it with doc. So yeah. Other stuff? Are you guys gonna go home and whatever you use to watch videos, and I don't know which one Mark and Mindy's on, but are you gonna go home and watch Mark and Mindy now? No. Some yes, some no. Okay. Cool.
Right, essays about the correlation between price and essays and marketing.
About what?
Sorry, I'm rambling. I think I did that.
I'm going to try and figure out more ways of documenting.
Yeah. There is a conference called Write the Docs, which is actually they do hackfests on just writing documentation and best practices for that, and I think that's super important work and is a really great idea because, like as you said, if you can't figure out how to use it, you might as well not exist because then you will just have to write your own.
And it's more fun with other people. Writing docs is really fun.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Have you seen Floss Wiki yet?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. You can get together and write a book about your software or just user guide, help manual, whatever, with everybody in tandem.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for listening to like talk about the Good luck. Oh yeah, and if you want.
Yeah,
Oh, so that's.